ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨਵੀਦ ਮੁਹੰਮਦ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਿਰਫ ਅਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਲਗਭਗ 2 ਸਾਲ ਵੀ ਪੂਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏ, ਅਪਾਇੰਟਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ CEO ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਆਫ ਵਿਲੀਅਮ ਔਸਲਰ ਹੈਲਥ ਸਿਸਟਮ। ਔਰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਬੜੇ ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਐਮਰਜੈਂਸੀ ਡਿਪਾਰਟਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਰਹੇ, ਫਿਰ ਵਾਈਸ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਵੀ ਰਹੇ। ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਤਾਂ ਬੜੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਖਬਰ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨਵੀਦ ਮੁਹੰਮਦ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਨੇ, ਸਾਡੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੜਾ ਫਖਰ ਸੀ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਕਿ ਇੰਨੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਰਿਸਪੋਂਸੀਬਿਲਿਟੀ 3 ਹੌਸਪੀਟਲ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸਿਵਕ, ਇਟੋਬੀਕੋ, ਪੀਰ ਮੈਮੋਰੀਅਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਰਜੈਂਟ ਕੇਅਰ ਸੈਂਟਰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਗਵਾਈ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਨਿਗਰਾਨੀ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਸੀ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਅਚਾਨਕ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਇਹ ਖਬਰ ਆਈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅਹੁਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਫਾਰਗ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਰਿਜ਼ਾਈਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਜ਼ਾਈਨ ਦੇਣ ਲਈ ਮਜਬੂਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ, ਇਹ ਹਜੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਇਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਅਜੇ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਥਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਐਂਟਰਮ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਮਾਰਟੀਨੋ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਐਂਟਰਮ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਐਂਡ CEO ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਿਯੁਕਤ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਖਬਰ ਹੈ ਪੀਲ ਰੀਜਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਨਿਵਾਸੀਆਂ ਲਈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੌਸਪੀਟਲ ਪਿਛਲੇ 2 ਡੈਕੇਡਸ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸਟਰਗਲ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਹੈਲਥ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਆਲਵੇਜ਼ ਮੈਡੀਸਨ ਕਰਕੇ, ਆਲਵੇਜ਼ ਕਈ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਓਵਰ ਆਕੂਪਾਈਡ ਬੈੱਡਸ ਕਰਕੇ, ਸਟਾਫ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਰਟੇਜ ਕਰਕੇ, ਵਰਸਨ ਹੁੰਦੀਆਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸਿਵਕ ਹੌਸਪੀਟਲ ਚਰਚਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੀਲ ਮੈਮੋਰੀਅਲ ਬਣਿਆ, ਅਰਜੈਂਟ ਕੇਅਰ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਬਣਿਆ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਹੌਸਪੀਟਲ ਤਬਦੀਲ ਕਰਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਚੱਲਦੀਆਂ ਰਹੀਆਂ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੇ 200 ਬੈੱਡ ਮਿਲਣ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੀ ਹਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਡੇਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ। ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਮਿਲਣਗੀਆਂ, ਐਂਬੂਲੇਟਰੀ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ, ਐਮਰਜੈਂਸੀ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ, ਉਹ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ। ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜੋ ਸੈਨ ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਨੇ, ਦਾ ਪੁਆਇੰਟਰ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਖਬਾਰ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਇਨਵੈਸਟੀਗੇਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਇਕੱਠੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੋਂ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਯੈਸ, ਨਾਮ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਹੌਸਪੀਟਲ ਹੈ ਇਹ, ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਆ 800 ਬੈੱਡ, 800 ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬੈੱਡ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡੇਟ 'ਚ ਵੀ, ਪਰ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ 200 ਬੈੱਡ ਦਾ ਹੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਮਿਸ ਹੈ। 8-7 ਸਾਲ 10 ਸਾਲ ਲੱਗਣਗੇ ਹਜੇ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ 200 ਬੈੱਡ ਮਿਲਣੇ ਆ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ, ਹਜੇ ਤੇ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ 'ਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ। ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਵਿਵਾਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਚਾਨਕ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨਵੀਦ ਮੁਹੰਮਦ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਚਲੇ ਜਾਣਾ, ਇਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ 'ਚ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਬੜੇ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਨ ਖੜੇ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਆਖਰਕਾਰ ਇਹ ਕੀ ਪਲੇ ਅਰਾਊਂਡ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਹੈਲਥ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਈਟੋਬੀਕੋ ਦਾ ਹੌਸਪੀਟਲ ਕਿਤੇ ਫਾਰ ਬੈਟਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਗਵਰਨਡ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ। ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸਿਵਕ ਹੌਸਪੀਟਲ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੁਣ ਉੱਥੇ ਜੁੜ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਪੀਲ ਮੈਮੋਰੀਅਲ ਅਰਜੈਂਟ ਕੇਅਰ ਸੈਂਟਰ। ਇਹ ਦੋਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ, ਜਾਂ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨਵੀਦ ਮੁਹੰਮਦ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਮੈਂਟ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਹਟ ਜਾਣਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਅਹੁਦੇ ਤੋਂ, ਇਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕੀ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਹਦਾ ਕੀ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਪਏਗਾ ਅੱਗੇ ਚੱਲ ਕੇ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇਹਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਸੈਨ ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਐਡੀਟਰ ਨੇ ਦ ਪੁਆਇੰਟਰ ਦੇ, ਉਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਲਾਈਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨੇ। ਸੈਨ, ਵੈਲਕਮ ਐਂਡ ਗੁੱਡ ਮਾਰਨਿੰਗ।
Hi, Mr. Sani. How are you?
Good. And it's a big news as far as Peel Memorial, Brampton Civic Hospital is concerned. I know he was heading all the 3 hospitals, but more or less Brampton is in crisis for the last many years now, and this is another crisis has been added to the list.
Crisis in the fact that the president and CEO is no longer in his role? Is that what you mean by another crisis?
All I'm saying that why it happened, why it is not being governed. Our premier, everybody in the provincial government, they know that what is the situation of health services in Brampton, how much they are looking serious about that. Is there any reason they are trying to clean the system? Or there was any revolt in the staff? What was the reason behind that? I think you are the better person to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated because we don't know why Mr. Mohammad is no longer in his role. Did he step down himself? Was he, let go by the board? So dismissed, essentially, removed from that position? We don't know. And if, hypothetically, again, I just want to make this clear, we don't know, but if it turns out that he was removed, we don't know the reason. Was the reason because, as you said, healthcare in Brampton has continued to be a crisis, Is it because Brampton Civic and Peel Memorial are not being run or managed properly? There's no one within William Osler. So William Osler is the healthcare system that runs Brampton Civic Hospital and Peel Memorial. Peel Memorial is not a hospital. It's a healthcare facility, but it does not have inpatient care. It does not have acute care beds. It does not have it doesn't have an emergency department. It's what's called an integrated wellness center. So, but it being a medical facility, Brampton Civic being a full hospital, it is the reason that Mr. Mohammad is no longer in his role directly linked to, as you said, the deplorable conditions, for example, in Brampton Civic, the terrible management, the failure to negotiate with the province, like what we've seen in Brampton and with Osler for at least a decade, more than that. And, you know this better than anyone, that, going back probably 15 years, a minimum, Osler has been unwilling to deal with the province in a proper way. Instead of demanding what taxpayers in Brampton are rightfully entitled to see their tax dollars coming back to their community for health care, Osler has basically, allowed the province to dictate the terms. If it's advantageous politically and financially for the province to neglect Brampton, Osler has never said anything. If it's advantageous for the province to treat Brampton poorly during the pandemic, where was Osler advocating? If it's advantageous for the province to divert healthcare dollars to other communities when Brampton is the one that needs it worse than anyone else, where's Osler advocating? You've seen none of this. So I don't know what is happening with Mr. Mohammad, why he's no longer the president and CEO. But one thing I can say is that if it results in bringing in a new president and CEO and a board that's going to take their role seriously and start, instead of basically being beholden to the province and acting politically instead of in the best interests of Brampton residents, I think it's time now for the board to start to really be held accountable for the public, for your listeners, for all of the residents, to start saying, no, you know what, we're not going to stand for this. The board better hold the administration and the executives accountable. The executives and the administration, they better start acting in the best interests of Brampton. We're sick and tired of them basically being the pawn of Dalton McGuinty or Kathleen Wynne or Doug Ford. Whoever seems to be in Queen's Park, that's who Osler answers to. Why don't we see the same thing in Mississauga? Mississauga is run by a separate system. It's called Trillium Health. Mm-hmm. A completely separate organization. Why does it seem to get all these wins and secure resources and now a new $3 billion hospital? One of the biggest hospitals in North America is going to be built in Mississauga. Brampton is the one that needs it much, much worse. How did Trillium secure that? What was Osler doing?
Yeah, it's a very valid question, Sam. No question about that. That Brampton is being neglected time and again. Dr. Mohammad took the charge just at the beginning of this pandemic. So throughout his term, he was struggling with many things. So we interviewed him. Actually, we had a press conference with him a couple of weeks back, and we could see he was feeling helpless.
But tell me, Mr. Saini, tell me, since he took his role almost immediately after the pandemic began. Within probably about a month or 2 months of the first infections appearing in Peel, Mr. Mohammad took on the role as president and CEO. Can you show me one time when he came out and said the province has to do more for Brampton, when the testing rates in Brampton were the worst in the province in terms of per capita testing? At one point, they were a quarter of what other communities were getting. Did Mr. And Osler was administering, they were managing the testing rollout in Brampton. Did you ever hear once Mr. Mohammad say, we want to work with the province and we want to be a partner, but we really need the province to give us more resources? It's not a harmful thing to say. It's not like you're going to jeopardize your relationship with the province if you simply ask for what your community deserves. But did we ever see him do that? Did we ever see him acknowledge or explain to the public, what are you doing in terms of the overcapacity? What are you doing with all the patient transfers? Why did Harmeen Oberoi, and a young 13-year-old girl, why did they die? Because they were either turned away from Civic or their family was scared to take them there because of the overcrowding. Like, did you ever see him address any of this?
Okay, sir. My next question is that I still remember.
No. But I'm asking you, Mr. Saini.
Yeah.
Did you ever see him one time in 2 years?
Not really. Not really. No one from the Brampton. Okay, my question is that in 2006, when we were having that demonstration, that agitation to improve the health services in Brampton, I remember a wrong leg was operated by a doctor during the Christmas time when orthopedic surgeons were not there, regular surgeons were not there. It was a big news on Toronto Sun's front page. I took that initiative to bring that matter to the public domain. Okay, so George Smith, who was the George Smitherman, who was the health minister, I believe, at that time, he was on vacation with his partner. He flew back to Brampton. We were all there. So he announced at that time that I have fired all the board members. And the guy who was CEO of Brampton Civic Health System, hospital, I would say, he was also fired. And all the board members were also fired. And I remember Mr. Ken White, if I'm not sure, was appointed as the interim CEO at that time. So they promised that they will clean the system, they will improve the services 15 years back. And now I don't see anything being changed after the resignation or removal of Mr. Mohammad.
Yeah, and I mean, even look at, the CEO, the president and CEO prior to Mr. Mohammad, he left unexpectedly. He basically quit. I think he went out east to Halifax. Obviously there were problems. That's what led to his departure. Then they spend 5 months trying to hire a replacement, and you can go anywhere in the world. Almost $500,000 you're going to pay this person to have this position. Shouldn't you be maybe looking at people with a business background, with administrative background, with healthcare administration? No. After 5 months of a global search for close to $500,000 a year job, you end up hiring internally. You end up hiring a doctor who's been making his way up the ranks internally. Again, it just doesn't leave me with a lot of confidence that after a 5-month search, how much money did they spend on that search? But you end up with, Dr. Naveed Mohammad, who has no experience managing a hospital, no experience as a CEO or a president, of a big corporation, and he comes internally, again, and as you said, what has changed after 15, 16 years? Has the board been holding the executive and the administration? Look at the administration. Look at some of these names there. Ann Ford, Cara Francis, making $200,000, $300,000 a year. Are they ever held accountable? All the other people, Mr. Martino, Dr. Martino, who seems to always end up as the interim, president and CEO. Does he have a vision? What exactly is his role? How come he keeps being the one that gets, stuck in to fill the gaps? The board, Jeffrey Ritchie, he's now the chair of the board. Hopefully he's going to bring about some change. Hopefully we're going to start to see things that, we haven't seen for 15, 16 years. But do I have confidence in that? No. And again, Mr. Saini, it always comes back to the same thing. right? Like, where are the community members who are sticking up for Brampton? Like, where are people who reflect what Brampton looks like? Where are some of the people who understand what families are going through? Why aren't they on the board? Why aren't they the chair? Why aren't they in these top administrative executive positions? Instead, we seem to be, having a permanent situation where the leaders of these organizations, the executives, the board members, the politicians in Queen's Park, they only care about the votes in Brampton, right? Give us your votes. We'll come to your Gurdwara. We'll come to your masjid. We'll come to your mandir. We'll eat your samosas. We'll drink your chai. And then after the election, we'll see you in 4 years when we need your votes again. And that's about the level of respect. And in the meantime, people are dying, like literally dying from this neglect.
Okay, San, thank you so much. We understand there are big shortage of resources, in particular in Brampton, fastest growing city. Every day people are coming to this city, making it their next home. Population is growing like anything, but I don't know. And we are discussing this thing again and again. So no surety of beds, no timeline yet. And I don't know how this time gap arrangement will work.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. We'll keep reporting. Stay tuned to the pointer. We'll try to inform the public. That's the best that we can do.
Okay. Sam, thank you so much. Thanks for talking to us. AC Dr. ਸਾਡੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਸੈਨ ਗਰੇਵਾਲ ਨਾਲ. ਸੋ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਨਵੀਦ ਮੁਹੰਮਦ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਐਂਡ CEO ਬਣਾਏ ਗਏ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸਿਵਿਕ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਵੀ ਵਿੱਚੇ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ, ਪੀਰ ਮੈਮੋਰੀਅਲ ਅਰਜੈਂਟ ਕੇਅਰ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਵੀ ਵਿੱਚੇ ਹੈ, ਟੋਬੈਕੋ ਹਸਪੀਟਲ ਵਿੱਚੇ ਹੈ. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤਿੰਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰਨ ਕਰਦਾ ਜੀ ਵਿਲੀਅਮ ਓਸਲਰ ਹੈਲਥ ਦਾ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ. ਔਰ ਇਹਦੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਮੂਲ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਐਂਡ CEO ਬਣੇ, ਪਰ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਸਟਰਗਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸ਼ਾਰਟੇਜ ਆਫ ਬੈਡਸ, ਸ਼ਾਰਟੇਜ ਆਫ ਰਿਸੋਰਸਿਸ, ਔਰ ਅਲਟੀਮੇਟਲੀ ਪੈਂਡੈਮਿਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਉਹ ਆਏ ਅਪ੍ਰੈਲ ਮੇਰੇ ਖਿਆਲ 2020 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਅਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਪੈਂਡੈਮਿਕ ਦੇ ਚਲਦਿਆਂ ਹੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅਹੁਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਹਟਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਖੁਦ ਰਿਜ਼ਾਈਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ. ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਜੇ ਕੋਈ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲੀ, ਪਰ ਸਵਾਲ ਉਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੀਆਂ ਹੈਲਥ ਸਰਵਿਸਿਜ਼ 'ਚ ਕੋਈ ਇੰਪਰੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਆਏਗੀ? ਲੋਕ ਆਉਣਗੇ, ਲੋਕ ਜਾਣਗੇ, ਪਰ ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਜੇ ਲੜਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੋਲਜਰ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ, ਲੜਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਜਰਨੈਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਹਥਿਆਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਬੈਕਅਪ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਫਰੰਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬਾਰਡਰ 'ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਲੜਨਗੇ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ? ਉਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਵਰਕਰਸ ਦੀ ਹੈ, ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਵਰਕਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਟਾਫ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਪੂਰੇ ਰਿਸੋਰਸਿਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੇ, ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਹ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜੋ ਹਾਲਤ ਹੈ, ਦਿਨੋਂ ਦਿਨ ਨਿਗਾਰ ਜਿਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ, ਦਿਨੋਂ ਦਿਨ ਜਿਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਖਸਤਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਾਲਤ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇੰਪਰੂਵ ਹੋਏਗੀ? ਇਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ 'ਚ ਇੱਕ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਵਾਲ ਹੈ.